all take your seats as soon as you reasonably can. We'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot going on tonight. Thank you all for coming. And I wanted to welcome you. My name is Sandy Ashley, and I'm involved in several of the ministries that collaborated for this event tonight. And those ministries are the Care for Creation Ministry, the Jubilee Garden, St. Francis Peace Through Justice, and a new ministry we have in our parish this year, the Parish Diversity Celebration. So welcome all of you, and thank you for coming. We don't have an event without an audience. And I want to thank every member of our parish staff. We have a fabulous staff, and each one of them supports all of the things that these ministries do in their own particular way. So it's very wonderful. I'm going to open with a prayer tonight, and it's on your tables, and you can follow along. This prayer was written for the 2024 season of creation, which is something we've started celebrating in our parish. And the season of creation actually comes from the Orthodox Church. They started it in 1989 with the World Day of Prayer on September 1st, which is the beginning of their liturgical year, and they begin with Genesis. So it started that way and grew. It's a global ecumenical movement. It grew into a season which goes from, as I said, September 1st until October 4th, the Feast of St. Francis. And so many churches around the world celebrate it. And here at St. Mary's, we're doing a number of things. Some we've always done and some are new. You may have noticed some bulletin articles. Wendy wrote a great one. There were some in the Care for Creation space about it. You may have noticed prayers during the Mass for creation and for the season of creation. Wendy chose some special music. We had the Canticle for the Sun last week, and she has Touch the Earth Lightly, which I think she's using every week through the season of creation. So she does a wonderful job supporting all of this. So the Catholic Church officially joined the Season of Creation movement in 2015, which is, of course, the same year that the Pope released Laudato Si. So I will read the prayer. You're welcome to join or just follow along. Triune God, Creator of all, we praise you for your goodness, visible in all the diversity that you have created, making us a cosmic family living in a common home. Through the earth you created, we experience love and nourishment, home and protection. We confess that we do not relate to the earth as a mothering gift from you, our Creator. Our selfishness, greed, neglect, and abuse have caused the climate crisis, loss of biodiversity, human suffering, as well as the suffering of all of our fellow creatures. We confess that we have failed to listen to the groans of the earth, the groans of all creatures, and the groans of the Spirit of hope and justice that lives within us. May your Creator Spirit help us in our weakness, so that we may know the redeeming power of Christ and the hope found in him. May the groans of the Spirit birth in us a willingness to serve you faithfully, so that we may hear and heal creation, to hope and act together with her, so that the first fruits of hope may blossom. Loving and Creator God, we pray that you will make us sensitive to these groans and enable us to have the same compassion as that of Jesus, the redeeming Lord. Lord, grant us a fresh vision of our relationship with the earth and with one another as creatures that are made in your image. In the name of the one who came to proclaim the good news to all creation, Jesus Christ. Amen. The theme this year, by the way, is to hope and to act. So it's a good theme. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the Jubilee Garden. Look around you, all the flowers in this room are from the garden. Please feel free to take them home with you along with a scoop of flower seeds that are back by the pumpkin. You probably noticed, couldn't miss it on the way in. There are free will donation baskets on your tables. All proceeds are going to the World Central Kitchen, which is a professional chef who is feeding people in need around the world. It's a well-respected, well-known organization. Now, the contests. So again, the pumpkin, you probably saw, told, maybe even did this. We're having a contest to guess the weight. Joe Beausoleil was gunning earlier this week to be the one to guess it, but now I'm told he already knows the answer, so I don't know how that's going to go, but give him some competition. So the other contest is for the best dishes. So on your table there should be some tokens, and you can take 3 of them and vote for a main dish, a side dish, and a dessert. And prizes will be announced at the end of the night. What the prizes are is still to be announced as well. So a little bit of drama. But you can vote anytime throughout the evening, and we really hope you will vote and make this a fun thing. We're here to have fun tonight, as well as deal with some important topics. So, and now we're going to hear from the incredible couple who do the ever so important work of keeping our Jubilee Garden growing and feeding those in need in Helena by donating to Helena Food Share. This would be, none of you know who this is, right? Dave Kraniker and Nina Heinzinger. So they're going to tell us, they work, by work, I mean work. Like, I don't know how they have jobs. Others do.
Thanks, Sandy. Like many of you, one of my favorite Bible verses is Matthew 25, where the Lord is saying, when you do this for the least of me, you're doing it for me. The least of my people, you're doing it for me. The great thing about the garden, Jesus keeps showing up. Last week, I'm moving some weeds into the garbage can. A guy comes by and says, "Hi, you work here?" "Well, yeah, I got weeds." So I said, "I just want to apologize." "Okay, well, yeah, last year my father climbed the fence and took some corn for." Well, were you hungry?" "Well, yeah." So he says, "Yeah, I was coming to ask for forgiveness." Which, of course, it's Jesus 101A. And I said, "Well, can we give you some food now? Where's your father?" "Well, he's in Deer Lodge." Okay, so anyway, we gave him some produce and sent him on his way. But several times this year, we've had homeless people come by while we're working in the garden. So it's a fun ministry. And so right now, we're at right around 2,500 pounds for the year. We still have a whole bunch of stuff out there. We're kind of behind because of the weather right now.
So you can help.
We've had 250 volunteer hours so far this year. This is an amazing community. There are community gardens in this town that wish they had 1/10 of what we've had in terms of involvement. So anyway, thank you all. Since this garden started, we are pushing 35,000 pounds. So that's a lot to donate. So it's an amazing garden. It's an amazing group of people here. We are working. We'll be there tomorrow from 11:30 to 1. We can do anybody that can help. We are more than happy to find space for you. We want to point out Patty here, who's one of our stalwarts. They're week in and week out, year in and year out, helping us. And so come on by if you're able, and see you in the garden. Thank you so much.
You still need containers.
We always need containers, yes. Yeah.
The plastic
Yeah,
containers.
those plastic containers, yes, we always need them. Every year I think we have way too many, and then by June we're done. So yes, yes. So, thank you all, and God bless you.
produce.
Actually, thank you, Dave and Nina, really, really. The next thing I'm gonna talk about briefly is the new ministry we have this year, which is the Parish Diversity Celebration. And the way it works is that we're wanting to make our community a welcoming, inviting place for a variety of people. You know, they say that the most segregated hour of the week is 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. So we're gonna push back on that a little bit. So we've had Saint Kateri and honored Native Americans, and now we have up in this space in the gathering, a place in the gathering space, Mother Cabrini, and we're honoring immigrants and refugees. And she is the universal patron saint of immigrants and refugees. So unless you are Native American, we are all immigrants. Some more recently, some who are active members of our parish, like Michael and Glenda Sipe, Dr. Wendy Ewan, and Kavita Boone, who we had until just recently. And some of us, many of us, our immigration family story started decades or even centuries ago. Immigrants contribute in a multitude of significant ways to their new societies. They enrich our society culturally and economically. And we can see that in our own families, in our own selves, and in others. Knowing our family immigrant story, as well as that of others, can increase not only our understanding, but our felt sense of connection with immigrants. So check that place in the gathering space for more information. And Valerie Hellerman, our speaker tonight, will also give us a lot of information. So the last ministry I'm going to talk about is St. Francis Peace Through Justice. We do a variety of actions. We're based on Catholic social teaching and love of God and love of our neighbor. The themes in Catholic social teaching that we particularly, I think, focus on and hopefully embody are the preferential option for the poor and vulnerable and solidarity. So we recently began a very exciting volunteer opportunity with Heart and Hands On Global. Valerie's the executive director of Hands On Global. They work together and they're connected to the International Rescue Committee, which is a well-respected international organization that works with refugees. So we are currently helping them welcome and assisting a Congolese family who was in a refugee camp in Tanzania for 20 years? 25 years. All of their children were born in the refugee camp. So we helped furnish and set up their apartment, and members of the ministry greeted them at the airport, and we're now giving them rides and learning a word or two of Swahili and learning to communicate without words and experiencing their smiles. And it's just been a wonderful volunteer opportunity. So if you want to join this effort by volunteering or donating household items, please sign up. We have a display poster board thing in the back, and there's a sign-up sheet there. We would welcome having more volunteers, I think. And it's really fun. We're pretty on fire about this whole thing. So one more thing I wanted to announce tonight, this is again on the topic of food, is the parish has a pantry. We call it a blessing box. It's out here near the garden. And we are always in need of donations, especially now the seasons are changing. We can use gloves, we can use socks. The parish staff sees families with kids come by there, all kinds of healthy snacks, please individually wrapped, but things like jerky, things like different kinds of bars. Connie usually puts water in. We can't do that in the winter, but that's another thing. Anything else you'd add, Connie? Connie's gonna have a list on the kiosk of things we need, and we run it in the bulletin. So please participate. It's a really good ministry. And I know what I do. We can all have our own style, but every time I go to Costco, I just grab something and bring it in and put it there. So Thank you. So now, we are on to the main event. Our speaker who ties all of this together is Valerie Hellerman, Executive Director of Hands On Global. She has extensive experience personally working in war zones and refugee camps around the globe, most recently I think in Ukraine. And she will discuss the threats and the situations that cause people to migrate. Climate change can be a part of that with droughts and floods and things like that. She will talk about the journey from deciding to leave to getting into a camp or to asylum, the obstacles and challenges of adjusting to a new life in an unfamiliar country, and the refugee resettlement that goes on right here in Helena. So we are so happy to have you with us tonight, Valerie, and so thankful for the very important work you do in our community and in our world. It's good for all of us. So welcome. Please help me welcome Valerie Helleman.
Thank you. I want to first tell you that I was really thrilled to see World Kitchen as one of your organizations you support. I've had the privilege of working with World Kitchen both in Ukraine and Greece and in Turkey. And right after the earthquake in Turkey, I don't know if you all remember, there was this huge earthquake last February. World Kitchen showed up before the bulldozers and the rescue crews, so they were pretty wonderful. I'm going to take this here. Is this on? Power's on. Okay. Well, I'm really happy to be here tonight. Hands On Global, I'm not sure this is this power on? There we go. Yes. I hear it. There we go. So I am the director of Hands On Global, and Hands On Global has two arms. One is the international team, and we are a very international team, and we basically do medical care. We do medical clinics in conflict zones and refugee camps. And because we've done that, when the Afghan crisis happened in 2022, when Kabul fell, and all these Afghans needed to come somewhere, we connected with the International Rescue Committee in Missoula and partnered with them, and we were able to bring 68 Afghans to Helena. Now there's only 32 who are still here, others reunited with their families. And since then, it's been pretty successful. The community has been incredibly welcoming. And now we have a Congolese family. And we now work with the International Rescue Committee headquarters directly. So we've all been vetted by the State Department and Homeland Security, and all of the asylees, all of the refugees have also been vetted. Now, why is somebody a refugee? I mean, if you read this, they're forced to flee their own country because of persecution or violence. And it could be for race, religion, nationality, political opinion, membership in a social group. Not all countries have freedom of speech, and that's something that we can really appreciate about America. So when people flee their country, I would say that 98% of them, maybe even 100% of them, they don't flee because they want to. They flee for their lives. They flee to avoid torture, or they flee because they have been tortured. And they also come for their children, to offer their children a life. So, okay, I'm gonna start this slideshow here. Okay. So when people I've met so many people who come to this country looking for asylum. This is 2023, the end of 2023, 117.3 million forcibly displaced people. This is how they leave. They leave at night, they leave on foot, they leave with the most minimal of possessions because they're running for their lives. This picture was taken in Hungary. People were walking from Greece through Hungary to try to find asylum in the EU. These are Syrian refugees, and as you can see, this is Syria, this is Aleppo that was bombed. And these are the kind of situations that these people are leaving, these civil wars. This is a Syrian family that they were refugees in a Greek camp, and this is where I met them. And they were fleeing for their lives. These people are also Syrians. And as you can see, they are coming with the most minimal of things. Many of them cross the Aegean, they get to Turkey, and then from Turkey they cross the Aegean in a boat and looking for asylum in an EU country, because if you land in an EU country, you can get asylum, although that's been a challenge. This is all in the Greek island of Lesbos. These are, at one time I worked in welcoming people out of the rafts, which was pretty intense. So these people, they pay somebody to go on these rafts that are really not very seaworthy, and not all of them make it. This little child actually drowned, and it was a very sad thing. This child made it. But look at the life jacket she was given. Do you think that would hold her up in the sea? And then when they arrive and they're herded into an area to wait. They have to give their name and country, what country they're from. And then they're locked up for the first 30 days and sometimes longer before they're identified. And the children are also locked up, although they get to come out of the cage for a couple of hours each day. And then here's the camp. This is the Karatepe camp. This was set up right after the Moria camp burned down 2 years ago. And this is where people end up living. And let me tell you, the average length of time a person is displaced is 25 years. So imagine that, your whole life. This is another camp that was set up in Greece on a football field. There were thousands of people coming to Greece. This is in the island of Samos, where there was a camp set up for 1,000 people, and there were 8,000. So people were just living in tents. This is also in Greece. It was set up in an industrial area, and this was one of the better camps. You can see there were kind of like boxes that people were living in. Most of these camps are set up in areas that are not environmentally sound, and this was when I was working there. It just flooded. It just flooded for weeks. It was a nightmare. This is the food that they're given. It's culturally inappropriate. Most of them try not to eat it. This is a boat that is, I'm going to just pause this for 1 minute because I want to talk about this. Okay. This is a boat, it's an SAR boat, but Frontex is the EU's Coast Guard. And what they do is they go out and they find these people in rafts. And they either wake them, like waking a boat, getting waves or something, wake them back to Turkey. And if they can't, they'll put them in these other little tented rafts back out to sea. And there are countless people who have drowned. It's actually illegal because people have the right to seek asylum. But, international law, who's going to be the police? It's just very sad that this happens. And I have a picture, I think, of the rafts. These are those little rafts that they'll put people in. See, they've just put some of these people into them, and they're just gonna set them adrift in the Aegean. This was the Moria camp that had 12,000 people that burned down, and it was a total disaster. Okay, now here's another reason people leave. This is Ukraine. This is war. There's thousands and thousands of internally displaced people, and this is between Ukraine and Romania, people coming out, really fleeing for their lives. This was in Zhytomyr, and I actually worked in this town, and this was one of the buildings that was hit, not while I was there. It's really sad when people have to leave their country because of a war. And I want to tell you a story. Coming across at this border crossing, we met a woman. We would go back and forth. The first time I went to Ukraine, it was so kind of crazy with the air raids, and nobody knew where the missiles were dropping. So we stayed in Romania, in Surat on the border, and every day crossed into Ukraine to work. And so we were at this border crossing every morning really early. This woman was pretty amazing. She was bringing her child, and she had another child who was about 6 years old. She was bringing her children to a relative in Romania to drop them off, and then she was going back to Mariupol because her mother was elderly and could not be evacuated. And so we helped her cross into Romania, and then met her 2 days later as she was going back to Mariupol. And we helped her out with getting her some diapers for her mother and water that she was hauling back. I never knew what happened to her, but I thought she was incredibly brave. This man was a soldier, a civilian soldier, and I think his face shows the agony of war. And this is one of the reasons you leave, is that when you take a walk in the forest and there's an unexploded missile. This is Turkey. Talk about environmental reasons for refugees. The earthquake last year was massive. And so these people are displaced. This is a Syrian family. They have no place to live, and the extent, so they're living in these tents, strewn in different places all around the cities. And it's so massive that it will take years and years before these people can have homes again. It was really astounding, the damage. And so this is also a Syrian camp. There were Syrians in Turkey. Syria borders Turkey, and there were Syrian refugees from their civil war. This is one of the poorer camps. I mean, it's hardly a camp. People are just living in makeshift shelters. And they've been living like that for a long time. Okay, but here our refugees have come to Helena, and we have a women's empowerment group, and we had picnics with them. These are mostly our Afghan refugees in these pictures. And it's really enlightening to have, this is your group, you guys. You guys are doing such an amazing job welcoming, come on, stop, the Lawamba family. They are just lovely, lovely people. They have spent 25 years in a refugee camp, and Wakabura was sort of cut off, but I have another picture of him. He is a very bright man. He wanted to be a teacher, but because he had to leave the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, because of a civil war, and then there are all these crazy factions that are just like killing each other, and it's been going on for years and years. So they had to flee to Tanzania to a camp. He wanted to be a teacher, but his education was cut off. So here he is now with this huge family and a pregnant wife who's due in November. And he's struggling, but he's doing really well. He's very appreciative of being here, but he's working he'll start working a pretty minimum wage job. And he has to support a family of 10, soon to be 11. Mama Bindi on the end is his mother. She's just a riot. I get such a kick out of her energy. And then next to him is Suleimani, who's 17 years old. We're working really hard so that he can catch up on his education because he wants to be a doctor. This family is struggling. They speak Swahili. Wakaboro speaks some French and Swahili. Communication is a little difficult, but we have found in Helena, there's like 3 people who are fluent in Swahili. Amazing. And there's Wakaboro teaching one of his children to ride a bike. The Helena Wheelhouse in Helena, right near HCTV, donated bikes to all of the kids, and they were really excited. Apparently in the camps, having a bike is a status symbol. And now they all have their own. They're very happy. And I've heard that they've been found riding around town a lot, which is great. Kids are all in school now. This is their house. They're living right now at Carroll College. It's very expensive. We didn't really get a break on the rent. They're paying $4,400 a month for 2 apartments next to each other. But I just heard that some lovely person has offered to rent a 5-bedroom house to them for $2,500. So that's amazing. But still, when you do the math, if you're making $17 an hour, which is good, it's a little bit more than minimum wage, it's not gonna quite make it. So we're hoping to find people who would be willing to help the family out and sponsor them a little bit, like with a monthly donation of like $50 to help them pay the rent for the first year. What we have found with our refugee population, with the Afghans who've been here now 2 years, we have some who just arrived like 4 months ago. They're all working, they're all contributing, and they're all pretty self-sufficient. It just takes time, it takes understanding, and it takes a village, and we are their village. And so that's that slideshow. Okay, turn the lights, please. So the IRC right now, so we're working, like I said, with the headquarters of the IRC. And what we've been told that the State Department was hoping that in 2024 we could rehome 125,000 refugees. Not us in Helena, but in the US. It seems like a lot, but, and it's a slow process. Getting asylum, a person like Wakaboro Luwamba, our Congolese guy, he came to the refugee camp in Tanzania in 1999, and it took until 2024 for him to get asylum. it's a very difficult process, and it's I should turn that off. Hold on. Let me just turn this here. Sorry. I have another slideshow to show you. It's really difficult to come to a new culture without language, without knowing the customs. You know, our Afghans and Wakaboro, the Congolese family, have all been amazingly open, and we do cultural orientation with them. But one of the things that's really helpful in the community is if you offer your friendship and have tea or coffee with them, or if you see them in the store, stop and talk to them. Because even though they've come here and this is wonderful for them, it's really different and they don't have community. There's no other Congolese family in Helena. And for Jeannie, the mother, and Binti, the grandma, they only have each other to talk to. Now, all you ladies know how we love our gossip, coffee, days with our friends. So it's really hard for them. And our Afghan women, they're doing pretty good. 3 of them are working. 1 of them is a stay-at-home mom because her husband is more fundamental and doesn't want her to work. But one of our markers of success in integrating them into the community was we had a picnic, and she walked up to a man who she didn't know and offered him a plate of food, which is huge. That was a huge thing for her. So, whoops. I just want to let you know also that we are going to have more families coming this year. We have 2 Afghan families who are coming sometime this month. They are actually educated, and some speak English, some don't. We don't know a whole lot about them, but we do know that one of the families that's coming, 3 of their children are suffering from malnutrition, one of them in a moderate way, and we've been told that that child needs to see a physician within the first week of arrival. They're Afghans coming from a refugee camp in Pakistan, which is not very friendly right now to Afghans. So even though they are professionals, they probably won't be able to work in their profession because of the licensing that happens in the US. We've had several doctors and nurses come through, and an engineer who was stocking shelves at the real food store until his English was good enough to, get a better job. But it's really hard for these folks to come to this new culture. And so it's so important that our community be welcoming to them, as you all are. And I have to say, St. Mary's ministry that's been helping the Wakabora family has done a fabulous job. So I want you to ask me questions, because I'm sure you all have questions about refugees and how the whole process works. Anybody? Yes?
How do they determine which part of the country they go to?
They actually don't have a huge choice. So when they apply for asylum, they apply to do asylum for the US, Australia, various countries, and when their number comes up, the US says, okay, we'll take this Congolese family, then they look to see if they have any relatives in the US, family ties. If there's a family tie, they try to send them to near their family. However, California and Washington, they're full. The IRC is over max of refugees, so they can't go there. The Congolese family has a brother-in-law in Missoula, but Missoula doesn't have capacity. So they came to Helena. But they don't really have a whole lot of choices. And they get here, they don't know what's Montana, what's Helena, Montana, you know? It's like they get off, we had one woman get off the plane and said, "Is this California?" I said, "No, not quite." So, yeah, it's hard. Anybody? Yes?
How are the numbers determined for the number of admissions in various countries each year?
That's the State Department. I don't know, but I know that they've done a special opening of the numbers for Afghans because it was such an emergency. But I know I had a colleague of mine who was a refugee he was from Ghana, and he worked with us in Greece in 2 of the camps. And we tried to get him to the US, and only 1 person from Ghana was allowed in each year. So that was unlikely that he was in. He did get asylum in Germany, so yeah. The asylum process, you know, I have to say it seems to me it might be pretty random. You have to prove persecution. And I've worked with people in the Greek camps who have scars from being beaten or, you know, bones have been broken. And that's not enough to prove that you've been persecuted at times. And I met a man from Uganda when I was working at the southern border. I was working in Mexico at a mission, and I saw this man who was clearly African. I was like, "Whoa, what are you doing in my line?" And anyway, I gave him my Hands on Global card, and he called me about 2 months later. He had crossed the border into the US, and he was put into detention in Texas. And he was in detention for 6.5 months. He went to an asylum judge. He went before him, spent 3 days in testimony, and he got asylum. And I got a call, literally a call at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, "Hi, this is ICE and your asylee is ready to be picked up." And I was like, whoa, like, really? So my husband and I scrambled and got him a ticket. He got here. He stayed here in Montana for about 2 months with me and Helena for a month, and then off to Missoula for a month. And now he's working for Toyota in Kentucky and doing really, really well. Yes.
Why and how did you decide to do this?
Me? I actually have been doing sort of this work for a long time. Back in the 70s, I worked in a refugee camp at the Thai-Cambodian border. And then I kind of took a break and had kids and sort of, I don't know, I feel like I'm so privileged. My life is so privileged. I don't worry about hardly anything. And I wanted to give back to the world. And I love what I do. I hate that it exists, that it needs to be done, but I really love doing it. And I love welcoming these folks to Montana. Anybody? Okay, well, I'm gonna just do another slideshow that is about Hands on Global and just gives you an idea of how we do what we do. And then you can ask me any more questions. I'm gonna go to YouTube to get it, so hold on one second.
If you haven't voted,
Oh,
please vote.
everybody vote, put your little markers in the.
And you can also guess the weight of the pumpkin if you haven't done that yet. I know you eat a lot, but.
I'm good, thank you though. I'm gonna sit down while oh wait, let's see, here we go. 2019, according to the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, there are 70.8 forcibly displaced persons on the planet. Half of these are children under the age of 18. 57% are from Syria, Afghanistan, and South Sudan, and many others are coming from the African continent. 37,000 people a day are fleeing their countries due to persecution or war. The average length of time a person is displaced is 24 years. In 2017, Hands On Global was notified of the overwhelming need for medical services at the Moria refugee camp in Lesbos, Greece. Hands On Global responded. We arrived and found the camp at 3 times capacity with over 10,000 refugees. Many were living in ISO boxes, 15 to a box, and there were tents strewn in between walkways, and then another 2,000 people living outside the wire in the Olive Grove overflow camp. There's limited electric, no heat. Food and medical care were rationed. Supplies always ran out. We started to see patients in their tents. This proved somewhat unsafe. We decided to rent a van, our guerrilla van we called it, and run a triage unit in the overflow camp, the Olive Grove. We took out the back seat and made it into a pharmacy, started a triage line, and the doctor saw patients from the back of the van.
This is for anemia. Saliva gland. It's a statement. Calcium. Exactly. Keto. Yes.
Our creative massage therapist did her magic in chairs, on concrete benches, and even the hood of the van. We saw an average of 60 to 75 persons a day. We saw a lot of untreated chronic diseases, injuries from torture and long imprisonments, sick children, and health issues related to the squalid conditions. These Greek islands are actually quite cold in the winter, and when the rain comes, it is a health disaster. We made friends and promised to return. On our return, thanks to our donors, we brought over 700 pounds of medications and medical supplies. This time we were inside the wire in the Katrina's clinic at the Moria camp. It was again really chaotic and very difficult working conditions. We brought a security person with us who monitored the gate, and that enabled us to concentrate on our medical work. There were long lines that people had to queue up for early in the morning to get a number to be seen that day. Emergencies were seen in between. We saw over 90 patients a day. The healthcare system is grossly inadequate. Lab work, x-ray, referrals are rationed, and it is frustrating for all the providers. We did the best we could with what we had. We were planning to return to Moria when we got a call from our colleague, Omar Al-Kashal.
Hello, I am Omar Shakal. I'm the founder of Refugee for Refugees. I am sending greetings to Hands on Global, and I want to thank to the Greek board, and they came last time to Samos, and they support the people who's living in the camp, and at the same time to their continuous supporting us with our project. Right now I am in the front of the camp in Samos, debating, And the capacity of this camp they created to house 650 refugees, but today around 4,000, to 400 people living in this camp. Most of them they live in the jungle. And the condition here is really bad. We came as refugee for refugees in December 2018 as emergency. And when we came here and we saw the condition, I gave a call for Valerie and she responded very fast and they came to Samos. When they came last time, they support as much people they could. And now we are calling them again because boats still arrive and we are asking them to come back to Lesbos and Samos and continue doing their great work as they do in different countries in the world. The problem in this camp, most of the people they live in small tents.
So here we are in Samos. There's only one doctor in the Greek camp for 6,000 refugees and one NGO medical clinic, Mediqual. We collaborated with the Mediqual clinic and treated patients again from the back of a van. This time we brought a small shelter to work in. Triage was set up at a table, pharmacy in the back of the van. We set up our little shelter and did portable ultrasounds in there, and that was shared with massage. With multiple providers, we worked together and even saw patients under a tree. We saw close to 80 patients a day. Those needing more than basic care were referred to the Mediqual clinic, which faced the same issues of extreme difficulty in getting lab work, x-rays, and referral to higher levels of care. As of September 2019, the population in Samos is over 7,000, with most of them living in tents in the jungle.
No one imagine one day they will end living in tents. Right now, the most need for them to feel they are human. And this is work actually for government, not for us. Our work trying to support them to keep them alive in different way. As I said, like giving them warm clothes, giving them food, or giving them medical support. We still waiting for you guys. We still waiting for your support and the people need you.
Who are these refugees? They are victims of war and persecution and environmental disaster. Nobody leaves their home or country by choice, and they are a microcosm of society.
Okay, I'm Alex, Alexander Severin from Ghana, and I'm a refugee in Greece.
Libya, Department of Agriculture under the Gaddafi regime. Iraq and Afghanistan, merchant and teacher. Democratic Republic of Congo, is a university professor of 18th century French literature. Iran, software engineer. Cameroon, registered nurse. Afghanistan, student. Nigeria, software engineer. Democratic Republic of the Congo, physician. Kurdish, merchant. Somalia, university student. Syria, third-year medical student. Afghanistan, sheep herder. Afghanistan and Somalia, both students. Cameroon, biologist. Syria, university professor of anthropology. Syria, lab tech. Afghanistan, sheep herder. Palestinian, school teacher. Nigeria, merchant. Afghanistan, sheep herder. Afghanistan, translator for the U.S. government promised asylum and it was not given. Maya, web developer. And then the children, many children. 50% of the people in the camp are children. There are refugees on every continent. It is a global humanitarian crisis and needs global solutions. We at Hands on Global work hand to hand and heart to heart, letting the refugees we meet know we see them, we hear them, and we care about them. Our work is possible because of your donations. Your donations enable us to purchase medicines, medical supplies, and fund needed surgeries. Please continue to help us. These are our brothers and sisters.
Okay.
How can I trust Toshihi? He compared
Yep.
abortion to murder and if elected, he
I'm gonna
can
go to
decide
that.
no on a national abortion
Sorry.
ban with no exceptions. Toshihi has
Advertising
no right to
coming
make
through.
decisions for my family.
Here we go. Okay, so that's the work of Hands on Global, which led us into doing refugee work here in Helena. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, well, I want to really thank you for inviting me here tonight and letting me share the stories with you. And as I said, if you meet any of our refugee families wandering around Helena, please say hello, welcome them, and enjoy having them in your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Don't forget to vote tonight, and you can do that again in November, I think, if you want to. Anyway, thank you all for coming. It was very sobering and informational. Valerie, thank you.
Sandy,
Yes.
remember the free will offering.
Oh.
Free will offering, just tell me.
Yes, I'm to remind you again about the free will offering for the herbs and flowers, and that goes to World Kitchen.
World
No,
Central Kitchen.
World Central Kitchen. Thank you. I think I need to go home. All right. Thank you very much.